I'm Brian Dickinson, President of Logical Conclusions, Inc., and I'd like to talk to you about the importance to every business, as well as to customers, of an event-driven business architecture. In this video, I hope to convince you that event-driven concepts are the most important in the development and running of any size organization. So I've subtitled this video, Essentials on How to Analyze and Develop a Customer-Focused Organization. The proven concepts in this video are based on my decades of teaching and consulting with many private and public organizations and authoring many books on how to develop quality event-driven systems. Now, just the same as when I speak at a conference, there's no way of me knowing whether you're an information systems professional, a business person, or someone just interested in how organizations work, or should work, and I don't know your current knowledge in this subject, so I'll make no assumptions, and I'll talk about the basic essentials.
First, let me tell you my incentive for creating this video. I was recently invited to do a presentation at the Bellagio Hotel Conference Center in Las Vegas. So I extracted a few slides from my seminars to cover what I thought were the most important issues for a customer-focused, event-driven organization today. Upon receiving the evaluations of that presentation, I decided to create this video because it was so well received. But don't take my word for it. Here are some of the evaluations comments. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Quite possibly the best one-hour presentation I've seen in years. Many people, companies need to hear your message. Well, I do agree with that comment, so I produced this video. And you know, these large, prestigious conferences charge a significant attendance fee, but I'm giving you the same presentation here for free. And this video is the actual slide presentation I gave at the Bellagio with my narration. You'll see I don't adhere to the typical rule of 3 bullet items per slide. I try to put a lot of content into my presentations. So I did get a comment, loved the talk, but it was like drinking from a fire hose. Too much good content to share in 60 minutes. Well, I understand that comment, so I've partitioned the talk into smaller segments. This video is the first segment. If you like this segment, you can learn more by going to logicalconclusionsinc.com. There you can download the entire one-hour presentation free and review my books and seminars on event-driven business architecture. There's a lot of alphabet soup regarding events in technical literature. You'll see EDA, event-driven architecture, EPC, event-driven process chain, ESP, event stream processing, CEP, complex event processing. Also, high-level services in SOA, service-oriented architecture, are equivalent to the concept of event processing. If you're in information systems, you may already be familiar with some of these 3-letter acronyms that encompass the word event. I did a Wikipedia definition search on event-driven architecture, EDA, and it said, EDA is a software architecture pattern promoting the production, detection, consumption of, and reaction to events. Well, it can be used for software, but using event-driven concepts is not just the domain of software. It's also highly applicable to human as well as computer systems. It is the basis of an architecture, though. Basically, event-driven means focusing on whomever or whatever is your customer. I Googled the title of this video, Event-Driven Business, when I was putting it together, and I got over 10 million hits. That was about 4 times as many as the year before when I was doing a similar talk. So event-driven concepts are finally mainstream, or at least catching on. That's really nice to see, as I've been teaching its importance for over 3 decades. Okay, so what's an event? I've actually refined my definition over the years. The one I'm most comfortable with is an event is anything that happens beyond the area of study that requires or produces a response inside the area of study. Now that definition allows it to be read as context specific. I'll talk more about that later. Now let me state a basic premise before we go further. All systems we encounter have a fundamental characteristic in common. They're all stimulus response mechanisms. I don't like to use absolutes like all. They can get you into a lot of trouble when you teach. But in this case, I'll stick with that definition. I want you to picture a system as a black box, where initially you only care about the outside stimuli and final responses. Now, the definition of stimulus from Webster Dictionary is something that incites into action or exertion. That's perfect for the way I want to start explaining an event. Let's show 3 examples in the stimulus response mechanisms here. Here's an example of an environmental stimulus response system. This example always reminds me of a faux pas I committed while teaching a seminar at the US Bureau of Land Management. I've conducted a lot of seminars at US government. The larger the organization, the more ripe they are for implementing and benefiting from event-driven concepts. Anyway, When referring to stimulus response systems in this particular seminar, I said I'm not talking about a rock here, I'm talking about systems. One of my students spoke up and said, so you don't think a rock is a stimulus response system? Go and take a look at the Grand Canyon. And I thought, oh dear, what did I say? Of course a rock is a stimulus response system. And since that mistake, I've included this example in my seminars. The event, a storm, produces a stimulus rain, especially acid rain, and the response over time can be something as significant as the Grand Canyon in Arizona. Here's an example of a biological stimulus response system. A hammer blow to the body is the event, causing the stimulus pain, the body's response being to remove the body part, and maybe some verbal response also. Here's an example of an organizational stimulus response system. In the business world, this is probably the one we're most interested in. The event is the customer wanting to buy our product or service, the stimulus is the order, and the response is an invoice and product going out. The most important thing to acknowledge here is each stimulus arises from an external event. In other words, from a business point of view, we're most interested in satisfying the needs of our external customer. You've probably heard the phrase, money makes the world go round. I actually think events make the world go round, certainly the world of business. Unless you're a bank, processing money is usually one sub-process of an event. In one process view, the world consists of a mass of things, events, happening through time. We select the ones that we're interested in. In my company, LCI, we're interested in events to do with teaching, consulting, and selling books on the subject of event-driven concepts. That's LCI's context. Let me show 5 examples of different events and their stimuli, but within their specific context. If we looked at a context of a pay-per-click computer tracking program, its stimulus from an event in the external world may be a mouse click. If we looked at the context of one department operation in an organization, its stimulus may be an inter-office memo or partial order folder being received from another department. The sending department could be thought of as being external to the receiving department. If we looked at the context of one computer program or system, we may find its stimulus is an input transaction triggering a portion of the code. That transaction could come from another system or an input device. For this talk, the context I'm most interested in is in the business or whole organization. Its stimulus could be an order or request coming from a customer. Remember my Bureau of Land Management example? Well, a customer isn't always a human being. The external customer could be the land, with smoke or an earthquake being valid stimuli. Now, from a whole organization context, I tend to view the first 3 examples, the computer tracking program, the internal department, and the computer system, as probably responding to fragments of an event. So I've labeled them internal. Of course, we can have even greater context, such as the global system triggered by global stimuli. I really hope someone's taking care of this event response. Depending on the context of study, these are all valid events and their stimuli. However, the most benefits are obtained by viewing events from an organization context within which we tend to have control. If I believe the first 3 examples on the previous slide were probably responding to fragments of an event, then what is an event in the business world? Now remember my comments, every organization selects a set of events that it wishes to respond to from the external world. And by the way, each organization usually responds to a similar category of events, banking, shipping, computers, etc. Now, the organization has no control over their selected external customer events. It simply responds to the arrival of the stimuli from the events. The important words in that sentence are no control. If we do have control over the event, we're probably not at the edge of our business and we're looking at an internal fragment of the business. Or we may be looking at a system event and not a business event. More on this later. Each external need to which the organization responds is called an event. From the organization's point of view, the first thing you see is the stimulus, not the event. That's always external. For example, here's a person thinking, I need to go to, which makes him contact an airline, or I need some cash, which makes him go to a bank or ATM, or a time event. It's tax time, which makes him send his tax documentation to the government, or I need to buy, which makes him purchase a product. These are all external events to the organizations that are going to respond to them. If we focus on this last event, we may see more detail of the order processing stimulated by the incoming order to the organization. The other may go through a whole bunch of departments, computer systems, databases, and so on, before it comes out as a response. This example shows what I call an event partition, one initiated by the customer. In the business world, the most important events are initiated by whomever the organization calls its customer, or whatever is the main external source of its stimuli. If you like this initial segment, you can download the complete presentation containing such things as how to specify events in the business world, removing all fragmentation of events, using event-driven partitioning to eliminate dead data, and creating seamless natural business boundaries. You can do that by going to logicalconclusionsinc.com. And if you have questions regarding this video, please email me at brian@logicalconclusionsinc.com, and please share this video with your colleagues and friends. Take care.